Have you ever just looked at a giant tree and thought, how? I mean, really, how does a tiny little seed hold the entire blueprint for something so massive and complex? Where's the instruction manual that tells it to build roots this way and leaves that way, all in the right order? Well, today we're going to crack that code. Let's get into it.
It all starts right here. From this little dormant seed, a seedling pushes its way out, finds the sun, and unfolds its first leaves. But that's just the very beginning of what is basically a lifelong construction project. So the big question we're tackling is this. How does a plant with no brain, no nervous system, how does it run such a complex program?
All right, the first piece of this puzzle is something really special that sets plants apart from most animals. It's called indeterminate growth, and what that means is, unlike us, a plant doesn't really have a fixed size it's aiming for. It can just keep on growing for its entire life, always adding new bits and pieces. It's a genuine superpower.
Now, before we go any further, let's just be super clear on what we mean by growth. We're not talking about a sponge just soaking up water and getting bigger. In biology, growth is this fundamental, permanent change. It's an irreversible increase in size. It's driven by the plant's own energy. It's all about making more of itself.
So, if plants can grow forever, what's the actual machinery that makes it happen? Well, you can think of them as having these perpetual construction sites, little engines of creation that are basically always running. Let's take a look at where these engines are and how they actually work. And here they are. These engines are found at the very tip of every growing shoot reaching for the sky and every root exploring the soil. These special zones are called meristems, and they're kind of like cellular fountains of youth. They are just packed with cells that are always dividing, churning out all the new cells a plant will ever need. And these meristems, they drive two main kinds of growth. You've got your apical meristems right at the tips, and they're in charge of what we call primary growth, basically making the plant taller and its roots longer. Then you've got lateral meristems, which handle secondary growth. That's what makes a tree get thicker and wider. So one grows up, the other grows out. Simple as that.
A perfect everyday example of this is something called apical dominance. You've definitely seen this. The main meristem, the one right at the very top, grows super strong, and it actually sends out signals to suppress the growth of the buds on the side. That's why so many trees have that classic cone shape. The plant is literally telling itself, focus your energy on growing up.
Okay, so this brings up a huge question. We've seen the hardware, right? The meristems that are always building. But what about the software? What's the code that's telling these engines when to hit the gas, when to hit the brakes, or when to build something totally new?
Well, the answer is just incredible. It's a super sophisticated internal communication system. You can think of it like the plant's own private internet, a network of chemical messengers that are zipping around, sending signals to coordinate every single thing the plant does.
And these chemical messengers, they're called plant hormones. You can basically group them into two teams. First, you've got the growth promoters, like Auxins and Gibberellins, that are always saying, go, grow, divide. Then you've got the growth inhibitors, like abscisic acid, which is like the emergency brake for when things get stressful. And then you have ethylene, which is this weirdo gas that handles things like making fruit ripe.
Let's look at a classic example. You know how a houseplant bends toward the window? Here's how that works. That hormone, auxin, doesn't like light. So when sunlight hits one side of the stem, all the auxin runs over to the shady side. This big pileup of auxin makes the cells on the shady side get longer than the cells on the sunny side, and that difference in growth physically bends the whole stem toward the light. It's so elegant, so simple, and absolutely brilliant.
So we've seen the engines and we've seen the internal internet. But here's where the real magic happens. It's how the plant uses all these tools to interact with the world around it. See, plants aren't just blindly following some pre-written script. They are actively reading their environment and reacting to it, minute by minute. And this is maybe the most important takeaway here. A plant's developmental plan is not set in stone. It is totally dynamic. It's constantly being updated based on outside signals like light, temperature, water, you name it. The plant is in a non-stop conversation with its surroundings.
One of the absolute most important cues a plant listens for is the length of the day, and they have this amazing ability to measure it. It's a phenomenon known as photoperiodism. This is how a ton of plants figure out the perfect time of year to flower, to give themselves the best shot at reproducing.
So for instance, you have short day plants that only flower when the days start getting shorter in the fall. And you have long day plants that need those long summer days to bloom. But here's the wild part. They aren't actually measuring the day at all. They're measuring the length of the uninterrupted darkness. They are literally measuring the night.
And this is crucial for us, too. Understanding this is a cornerstone of modern agriculture.
And it's not just light. Temperature is another huge signal. Some plants, like winter wheat, absolutely will not flower unless they've gone through a long, cold spell. This is called vernalization, and it's a safety mechanism. It stops the plant from getting fooled by a warm week in January and flowering way too early, only to get zapped by a frost. It's a survival strategy, written right into their code.
This incredible ability to literally change its body shape based on the environment, that has a name: plasticity. I mean, just look at this buttercup. The leaves it grows underwater are all feathery and thin to deal with the water flow, but the leaves it grows above the water are broad and flat to soak up the sun. It's the exact same plant with the exact same genes, making two completely different structures just based on its surroundings. That is plasticity. All right, we've got the engines, we've got the chemical signals, and we've got the environmental cues. Let's put it all together now and look at the complete developmental blueprint for a plant. The grand term for all of this, for the whole shebang, is development. It's not just about getting bigger. Development covers the entire life story of the plant, from the moment it sprouts through its growth to the point where its cells become specialized for different jobs, all the way to old age. It's the sum of all those parts.
This chart basically shows you the entire journey of a single plant cell. It starts off in the meristem, where it's born. Then it grows, gets bigger, and finally it matures, it differentiates, and it gets a specific job. Maybe it becomes part of a leaf or a root. Every single cell follows this path.
So if you had to boil the entire secret code down to one sentence, it would be this: a plant's life is this intricate, beautiful dance. The choreography comes from its internal genetic program, the hormones, the meristems, but it's constantly improvising in response to the outside world of light and water and everything else. And that leaves us with one last really fascinating question to think about. We've seen that plants are not these passive, boring things. They are dynamic, they are responsive, they are incredibly adaptable. So if they can read their environment and literally rewrite their own body plan on the fly, it just makes you wonder, right? What other secrets are they hiding? What else are they capable of?